So good evening. It's nice that it cooled down a little bit. We can better think when it's more cool, yes? So we're going to review a little bit what we have learned so far, and we want to see why in the human life relationships are most important. There is nothing that is more important than the way that we have our relationships. And now, of course, we saw yesterday already that there must be a purpose or a reason for a relationship. And it can be only either you want to give love to the other person, or you want to receive love from the other person. There are only these two ways of a purpose. You either want something, that's why you go into the relationship, or you want to give and unite to do something together in the relationship. Now, unfortunately, because of the error that we have in our spirit, we do not know how relationships work. We think it's a give and take. Yeah? So I give something, and so I want something back. That means the purpose is to receive. Yes? We have not understood that that is not correct. And everything runs well until the person that I am in relationship with does not act accordingly. And when that person does not act accordingly of my needs, I'm getting into trouble. Or if the person is so good acting, and then it passes away, and then you get into trouble. I have seen in this 16 years many thousands of patients, and I found only these two roots of problems in a relationship. Either the other doesn't act like I need it, or if he acts well, he passes away. That's all the things. But it doesn't come out until the things change. So I had a patient who got a tumor in her chest, a lymphoma, 4 years after her husband died. And she was dreaming her husband every night. And was mourning for him every day. She was a Christian lady. And she got all her medications, so she was somehow helped. But why is one dreaming the husband every day, every night? And I have also the man part. This gentleman he got very sick in between 10 years after his wife died. And he dreamed his wife every night also. He says, I am sleeping with a big picture of my wife in my bed, and I'm every morning upset because I wake up and my wife is not there. A gentleman got severe joints issues. He could not walk, only bow down because of this thing. So how was his spirit? Free or in bondage? Why did he want his wife? For her sake or for his sake? So you see, we as humans call selfishness love. And we think it's normal like that. So that's why all our relationship becomes a trap, because we are entering them and we are giving something we believe from ourselves, and then they become our debtors. And if they don't pay their debt, we have an issue. How easy would it be if you would understand that before I can give something, I must take. And then I gave what I took before. You have never an issue if that person gives you something back or if it exists or not, because you are doing exactly what is right to do, and you would be a free agent, and your relationship, you could enjoy them without fear. So, what do we expect in a relationship? Do we have expectation in a relationship? Yes. And if the expectations were just be for the situation, that means we are in a marriage, or we are in a business, or we are father, children, mother. We have a certain work to do, and then we expect that that work should be done correctly. There would be no issue. But we expect things personally for us. We believe that another person can fulfill our needs. That's why we take them. And if persons realize that others cannot fulfill their needs, then they say, why would I marry? Or why would I live with others? I just go on an island. You see, in our mind's error, it's either total dependency on the other, you want him because of you, or, if I should just give him something, I should just live with him, then I'd rather live alone. Isn't it amazing? I had this conversation again and again, and see it in every patient, how they realize what they understand. So we think others can fulfill our needs. That's why we search them. Is it possible that other persons can steal our needs through showing us the opposite of our needs? So if someone lies, does he steal your need for truth? If someone commits an unrighteous act, does he steal you the need for righteousness? Can he do that? How does that work? Why would we believe that others could steal our needs when they don't do what they should? Why would you get upset when someone lies unto you? Do you get upset when someone lies unto you? You see, I never had a patient who does not get upset when someone lies unto him. I mean, when he sees it. When someone lies and he don't realize it, he has no issues. But in the moment you find out that he lied unto you, you have a negative reaction. And the reaction is correct because we have an anti-need for lie. There is only, the problem is, does that lie take from me something away, or does it take not from me something away? Do I get hurt by that, or do I not get hurt by that? So can someone, by doing something wrong, hurt ourselves? So can they hurt our feelings? Do other person owe us anything? And why do we have expectations at all from others for ourselves? So, this great error that we have in our mind, we have seen it yesterday and we will review it today, really messes up all our best relationships. Should there ever be a fight between a mother and a child? Yes or no? There should never be a fight between a mother and a child. And yet, there is a almost continuing fighting between a mother and a child. Now that the child fights against mom, you might think it's normal, yeah, because they, have no coordination yet. They don't know what, where, and what to do. But that a mother loses control because that little thing does something wrong is not normal, is it? I saw it with my daughter because I have the privilege to live 2 years around at my practice in a small apartment, and I could see how that, back then it was 3 years old, now the child is 4 years old, 5 years old, and you could see how the dynamics are, and how that little child, and now he's 5, can bring mom to be despaired. Isn't it amazing? Isn't it? I mean, he is so active, and he is all the time demanding something. Yes, children demand all the time, and she, instead of being just cool and relaxed and doing things smoothly, she just cannot handle it. And so, mother-child relationship is the most important relationship. We'll see a little bit today in it. And it's one of the most, I could say, difficult relationships. And the most problems arise from mother-child, child-mother relationship. And I believe if the child has an issue, that's fine, but the mother should never have an issue with the child. So because of this error in us, we are just have no fun in our relationship. We have no pleasure in them. They're always in a tension, or we live in fear, yes, for our children, instead of being free. So let's see why. So we have seen that we need to know the 5 things, the basic law, the structure and function, and we started yesterday to see that, and we will continue. And we need love, because we work by love, and we need food and air in order to be able to sustain the function. And we all know that nothing that was made that it can exist out of itself, and nothing was made for itself or himself. And so that's the fundamental of the universe. Every single part, there is no particle from every creation that does not take in order to give. There is in everything an input and an output. And of course the question is, where is the input? So we have seen that the humans have a structure, and they are built out of how many elements? He didn't hear. 2. So they have a body that's chemistry, and they have a spirit. And the spirit guides the body by his decisions. And decisions make electrical current. Everything we do are subconscious decisions that move our body and keep him going. And the soul is just the connection between them, since in the cortex the whole human being is connected. The spirit doesn't go through your body and, to do something. He is just like the piano player at the keys, and from there everything he can direct, like a pilot in its cockpit. So, and we saw yesterday also, how the cockpit looks like. That is, how is the subconscious made? So we know in the will, we have all our needs, they come up so that we are aware of them. But all our decisions we do subconsciously through how many decisions? 2. which is what? We have to put all information in either loss or gain, and we were so set that we have for the gain a yes, and for the loss to avoid no. We can never come beyond this thing. And we have seen that what makes a person sick is that he considers the loss he goes through as being his own. Yeah? When someone lies to you, you think he lies to you. When someone steals you something, you think he's stolen you something. Do you? Yeah? When someone beats you up, you think that you were beaten up. Yes? You take it personally. And now the beating heals. But what does not heal is the way you have calculated that beating. And the way you calculated that will have effects in your body that does not come from the injury that you had on your body, but just the way you have thought about it and you have stored it in the back. And you have stored it as a personal loss. So every problem that a human has comes because he thinks others can do him loss. He thinks that he can experience a personal loss by what others are doing. That's why he tries to control others, but how much success can we have controlling others? There's no way how to control others, and that's why we are stuck. We destroy ourselves because we were set never to be able to say yes to loss. You cannot. You can say yes to not personal loss because it's not about you. But you can never say no, or you can never say yes to a personal loss. Now, we were made to govern ourselves, and to govern yourself, you need two actions. And in order to go forward, you must go forward and you must have a stop going backward. Yes? If not, you don't go forward. And that's why we have the no to never go backwards. Yes? Just go forwards. Yeah? So I explain this when we in Germany have free Autobahn. I mean, we have free speed, no speed limit in certain portions of our freeway. And that's a very nice thing. Yeah? Especially if you have a car that can go a little bit faster, but almost every car goes fast. And now the faster you go, what happens with your attention? Does it grow or lessen? It grows. You know, when I'm tired, I drive fast. Because then I have to pay attention. Because you must be always so in tune so that you have to push that brake at every possible moment. Especially when you drive 220, 230. It's fun, but you drive with not fun for everyone, yes. My wife closes the eyes. I say, sleep. There is no danger because it's safe to drive. It's not that you drive but I say so. Speed is from God. Hurry is from the devil. Yeah? So speed is good. Just when you're in a hurry, that's the problem. So you must be in intention all the time, being ready to push that brake. Because you want to go fast, but you don't want to make an accident by going fast. Yeah? So this is every surgeon, when he makes a surgery, does he pay attention? Why? Because he does not want to make a mistake. You know, when I did surgery, and you go into the sinuses, you go into the middle of the head, and you just one little bone separates you from the brain. And you don't know when that last bone comes. Yeah? So you have to take out bone after bone. And then you come to that, and you must know, oh, this is the last one. You go beyond this. So how do you do surgery? Paying attention? Yes. We had to first do it on dead people. Yeah? So that we got used to it, so that you don't go beyond that last one, because if you go beyond that last one, that person might die or be paralyzed, for whole life. So you pay attention. If we could say yes to loss, the surgeon would never pay attention. He would say, well, if I go through it, doesn't matter. No? But we cannot. We must do it. Now, the surgeon doesn't do that for the patient. He doesn't do it for himself. But still, he does it. He does not want to have a bad reputation, so he takes care. He wants to do a good job so that it is well for him and maybe also for the patient. But he must avoid the loss. So have you understood that? We must avoid the loss. There is never, this mechanism can never be changed. It's set by the Creator, and we must do it like that. So every problem that the human has is when he cannot avoid loss, or when he thinks he cannot avoid loss in his life. So we saw yesterday that the heart needs a treasure. So you must go for the gain. And it's not a choice that we all run for the gain. Yes? It's not a choice. We must do it. We are set like that. And the gain must have only one condition to fulfill. It must be imperishable. You see, when everything you do and you gain and no one can take that gain away, then you are always safe in your life. Always safe in your life. So, we have seen that there is in our subconscious we have identity. And we all believe by birth that we are gods. And because we believe we are gods, out of that arises pride and selfishness. And because of pride and selfishness, you give something in order to receive, because you have something to give from yourself. So let's check. Can ever a woman give love from herself to her husband? Just to check if you understand the thing. Can ever a woman, I took the woman now, I could take the husband. Can ever a woman give anything from herself to her husband? Never. Yes, because nothing is herself. And everything she gives, she must give because she took it before. I had, not long ago, a patient, a mother. Her daughter quit the relationship with her and doesn't want to talk to her anymore. So when mothers are cut off from their children, is that a great stress? Yes. That's a terrible situation. And the mother becomes my patient, because then you get sick and the child cuts you off. And now the mother says, I gave my child 3 years of my life helping her to raise her first child. I gave my daughter gifts. I gave her gold. She told me how much gold she gave to her daughter. And she said, I worked for her. And I took all those notes down, and I said, let's see how much of what you gave came from you. Because if she would know she never gave anything from herself to her daughter, how much would her daughter owe her? Nothing. So I said, how much time is your time? How much time comes from you? Can you produce time? No, you can use it. You are in time, you put in time, but time is not yours. So every time you give does not come from you. You see my patients? Thank me because I take time with them. And I never charge for counseling. Yes, I do all my counseling for free, even in my practice. And I take some 4 to 5 times, 1.5 hours for counseling every week, sometimes more, and I don't charge for that because I think it must be love, must be free. And then they say to me, oh, thank you, doctor, for your time. And I say, don't thank me, I never gave you any time from me, I don't have time. I just use time. And if I use it well, then it's good. So no one can ever claim that time is his. Yes? But we all think that someone can steal our time. Can someone steal your time? We're so unaware that everything comes out of the idea I'm God. You must be God if time is yours. No matter if you realize it or not. Then second, gold. How much gold can a human being make? None. So how much gold did she give from herself? She had to take it somewhere and give it there. Now you can say, well, but she worked for that to be able to get the gold. With whose power did she work? Her own or not her own? Yes? Can you ever use your own power for anything you do? No, because you need to breathe the oxygen in order to have any possibility to have a muscle move. Yes? You need to drink water, you need to eat, and you need to give the electrical impulse to that. But even though you do that, you always use foreign powers. That's why to claim that you ever have given something from yourself is total self-deception. That's why we get into big problems when our children or our parents, whoever does something, and we believe we gave, and now that I give, I want to receive. And if the mother doesn't receive anymore or receive too little or something is taken away, then she is in trouble because can she avoid the reaction of her daughter? Can she? No. And the daughters react like they react because mothers want something from their daughter or just want to give something to their daughters. Pardon? Yes. The daughter would have never an issue with mother if mother would not want something from the daughter for herself. Never ever. You have never a problem in your relationships if you don't want something for you. Yeah? Others might have an issue with you, but you are free. So, in the truth, if we would understand that we are a child of God, we are a creature of God, then love would be the motivation of every action. That means I need first to take, because I have how much? Nothing. In order to give. And the more I give, the greater is the imperishable treasure. So you see, how can you get to the treasure? By the actions of another one or by your own? Only by your own. You see, there is a story in the Bible of a rich man who came to Jesus and said one day, "What shall I do to inherit the kingdom of heaven?" What did Jesus say to him? He says, "Keep the commandments." And then the young man asked, "Which one?" And Jesus said, "Honor thy parents, do not kill, steal," and so on. All those, we will see them in the next hour. He told them all those things, and what was the answer of that young man? "Everything of this I have done from my youth." Did he or did he not? Did he or did he not? You see, in his outside life, he kept the letter of the law, and we will make a difference between the letter and the spirit of the law. And then Jesus, in his knowledge of the law, says to him one thing. What should he do? In order to have a heavenly treasure, he says, you must have a heavenly treasure. And in order to have a heavenly treasure and to have an everlasting life, what should you need to do? He said to him, "Go and give." How much? Everything. Because there is nothing in nature that keeps something back. You must ever, if you want to get to be rich, you must give everything, because nothing comes from you. If you keep something back, you break the law. And actually, it's not even really possible. So the rich young ruler went away sad because he kept none of the commandments. Because Jesus proved to him that he lived for whom? All the riches and even the law that he kept outside was worth nothing, because he could not give. You know, the only thing while a person cannot give, what is the condition that you cannot give something? No, but if you have something and why would you keep it back? Pardon? Personal value? Exactly. You see, it's easy to give something that is not yours. But if you think that what you must give is yours, you cannot give it, or you give it a little bit, so in order that you get more back. So we must understand, you only can give if you understand that nothing is yours. And this is the condition for how many people to be in the kingdom of God? Everyone. It's not for the rich and ruler only. One day there came many people after Jesus, and he turned back to them and he said, "Do you know what it cost you to come after me?" And he said to them 2 parables, and at the end of those 2 parables he says, "No one can be my disciple if he does not forsake everything that he has." That means he comes to the truth that he has how much from himself? Nothing. You can never be free except you know the truth. So you can only have a rich treasure in heaven that is imperishable by what you do, never by what others are doing. Yeah? But you only reach that goal by giving to others what you took first from the source, from God. So that we saw yesterday. That was a repetition because we went quite fast. So now we go a step further in order to see the whole overview. And now we see it in function, how it comes one after the other. So there is the cortex, the body, and the spirit above. And there is the will, that's the conscious. And then the spirit is in need of information. Like the body is in need of oxygen and water, the spirit lives from information. He cannot live without information. Love is an information. Truth is an information. It's everything. Security is an information that we must think about it. So the word, we need the information from outside. We cannot produce it. We only work with it. Yes, we use it. So now the information must come from outside, and it comes first through our consciousness. We must be aware of it, but it is not evaluated in the consciousness, but in the subconscious or in the heart. So, and the first thing that the information knocks at is identity. So who am I? That's the first thing that information hits. That's the door of the spirit, as we will see. And if that is the truth, then you have the good eye, that is that lightens the whole body. So the next, and this is the first action that you take after identity has evaluated the information, is trust. In order to take something in, you must trust. And the question is, in whom do I trust? Is the first action. Trust is the first action of every spirit. He never can do anything without trusting first. He needs a source of orientation, and that is, he can bind himself to work with the information that comes in only if he trusts first. Out of trust, the next step is motivation. And motivation asks the question, for whom do I do it? So, for whom do I do what I do is the motivation question. And we know by the law that how much can you do for yourself? Nothing. Hope that's very clear. So for whom do we want to gain and for whom do we want to avoid loss? Well, in deception, yes. But in the truth. Yeah? Yes. So, for whom do I do it? Then the action is set, that is in the background. It's the law of life. You must take in order to give. And you must always take decisions according to gain. And God said that gain is giving. And it's the goal of every action is to gain. You cannot change that. And the goal of every action is to avoid loss. And loss is not to give or to keep. And this must be avoided by all means. And then comes decisions. And we have only, the Spirit can decide, and we have only two decisions, yes and no. And we must do it on both sides of our cortexes. That's why Jesus in the Sermon on the Mount said very nicely, yes, yes, and no, no. And anything else is from the devil. Yes? So yes, yes, no, no. You know, some people think there is a color between black and white. There is nothing. Yes? It's at the bottom of everything. It's just yes and no. There's nothing in between. Yeah? So that is the inner structure of man. So information comes in here, and then it hits first this, and then you must trust to do something with the information. When the information comes, you must trust to a source in order to evaluate that information. You evaluate the information according to your motivation, and then according to gain and loss, and then you take your decisions. And they measured the speed of this process, and it's about 4.5 milliseconds. Yeah? So that until you make a decision between gain and loss. They made it with player. I don't know how they measured it, but it's something in reality. You can just so fast decide between gain and loss. So, now let us look to the first man, how he was created. Adam was created to live from the Word of God. Yes, from the information, from love, from security, everything that God has. And he had to do that through his heart, because the identity connects you to the source. And he knew he is a created being, and he knew that is the truth about himself, so he had the single eye. In whom did he trust? Had he any other option? No, had he other option if you know that you're a created being? You have no option. You see, everything that is in the subconscious, there is no option. Okay? Because you must trust by no choice. If you know who you are, you trust correctly. And we will see if you are in deception, you trust the wrong person. So you cannot trust except in your Creator. That's why identity is so important. We will see that all humans trust whom in their life to get sick. Now they trust all others, but first their parents. Yes? People think that they come from their parents. That's why parents are so important. That's why people go and search for their parents. They think their parents is their identity because they believe they come from them. So Adam knew he was a creature of God, so he could not trust only in God. So for whom did he do anything? Out of what motivation? Of love, yes. He could do anything out of love, and he could do it only for God, because created him for a purpose to do it. Not for God himself, but for the thing he was created for. So he did it according to the law. He knew gain is the goal of all his decisions, and that is giving. Loss must be avoided by all means, and that is not giving or to keep. And then he had that. All his decisions was yes and no, and they were all right. And loss could be avoided. He had full control over his life, over his heart. Until the situation came that he wanted to be more than a human being. Every problems that humans have come because they wanted to be more than what they were created for. And so when Adam listened to the serpent, through Eve, he was changed. What was changed in Adam when he wanted to be more than a creature? What was changed? His identity. That's why he became a god. Now he believed a lie as truth. And that is the evil eye. That's why immediately when God asked him, "Why did you eat?" what did he say? Did he take responsibility or did he blame? Until Since then, all people blame their problems on others. Yes? Everyone. And even though that blame their problems on themselves, guilt thoughts, they also do it because of others. It's very tricky if in our self-deception. So now motivation, in whom does he now trust? Automatically. He thinks he trusts himself, but as he cannot be a God, he also cannot trust himself, because trust means I must take from someone, and so he trusts humans and in the end the devil, because he believes they must supply his needs. So humans become his orientation. Now I come from Romania. In Romania, everyone asks the question, what will the neighbor say? Yeah, maybe here it's not so strong, but in Romania, that everyone says, well, what will the neighbor say? And it's so deep in us that we are not even aware how much we are dependent on what will the neighbor say. Does it matter what the neighbor says? No, because it's none of his business. Yeah? But we are so dependent on what others are saying or not. Now the motivation, did motivation change? Yes, he now lived for whom? For himself. Pride and selfishness took the role of love, because love does nothing for itself, but selfishness does everything for itself. And now he is a slave of the devil. The action has changed. He now gives, because he's a God, in order to receive. That's the law of death. That's no way out when you give in order to receive. Because what do you do when you don't receive? You invested, you're gone. Now, gain became receive, loss became not to receive. And now how many decisions could he do freely? None. All were wrong. And he could not avoid loss, so he could not avoid disease in his life. So the most important thing is that we understand there is only one thing that determines every action in our heart and every decision, and that is, who am I? We'll see later a little bit, that's the door. Now, the question is, why are we all the same? You see, when I discovered the error on my patients, that everyone has the same error, I said, has everyone the same error? And we must know, why do we have a law of heredity? What does heredity say? Yes? Heredity says that everything that we see comes from a first created thing. Yes? So God created Adam. And how many people came out of Adam? How many? All of us come out of Adam because God only one human created. And he gave the law of multiplication and the law of heredity. We only have a law of heredity because the plant out there that you see, the bush, when was it created? It was created in the beginning, in paradise. So when were you created? You see, in Adam, we were already there. Yes? We don't come from a dead person. We don't come from a life that did not exist. We come and are just the multiplication of that one life. Because God has a concept of creation. That's why he made the law of heredity. So how much did we inherit from Adam? everything. Yes? Now, of course, things have changed. God made out of Adam a woman. She was 100% out of Adam's life. And if they would have had children, how many of those children would have their own life? None. Everyone would have the life of Adam. So, and every individual should live on forever. Now, Adam and Eve took their trust away from God and became gods themselves. So they now not have anymore their identity in God, their creator, and now they are convinced they are spiritually independent. And this they give to how many of their descendants? Yes, so since Adam separated, every descendant inherits the idea by no choice that he is a God. And so he must die. That's why death is inherited. Yes, so we all are without a choice being born in a self-deception and must ultimately destroy ourselves if we don't change that. So let's see how I was born. I can give you the slides or whatever. I have a father. My father's John, you could say, yeah. And my mother is Gerda. So how much of my body I inherited from my mother? Yes, I have half from my father and half from my mother. I believe this is why our cortex is separated. And I saw that we have, the mother side is always the dominant side of the cortex. Yes, and when you have issue with your mother, it comes out on that cortex side. And if issues with your father, you have it here. So, because we have half, 50-50. But we also inherit a spirit from mother and father. How much of the spirit is from mother and from father? Now, it also must be half, even though we don't know about the spirit, but it must be half because we have in our spirit tendency as well as from father and as from mother. People think that tendencies are in the genes. Forget it. Genes and brains have no tendencies. Yes, there cannot be any tendency in genes. You see, that's impossible. Genes are just mechanical things that have to fulfill orders. They have no tendency. They're programs. Would you ever say that your program in your computer has any tendencies? There's no tendency in a program, in a physical thing. But since we don't know the spirit, we believe tendencies are in the genes. We even think that sin is in the genes. Yes, I mean, but just if sin would be in our genes, we would just need a gene replacement, and everything would have been fine. But the problem is in our spirit. I got from my father the idea that I'm a God, and I got it from my mother also that I'm a God. So how much God I am? Fully 100% God. Yes? So that's how I have that from my parents. And so I have to trust to whom? My parents. I know no other choice. And so now we will go into that relationship of mother and child, or of child and mother. How does a child come into existence? We know that the mother has a body and a spirit, and the spirit makes the electric things, and the child has a body and a brain, and the spirit of the child must make the electricity. Now, when the two half cells meet where do they meet? In an open space, yes? They don't. They meet in an open space, yes, in the tube. And then they come together and they start multiplying, yes? And then they come down and the embryo goes into the uterus. And who does connect to the uterus? The uterus to the embryo or the embryo to the uterus? Who must always connect? The one that is in need. Okay? So the child, the umbilical cord of the child comes from the child and is from the child's body, never from the mother's body. That's why when the child is out, what happens with the... Yeah, you cut it, but what happens with that, with the placenta? It must be out, it must get out because it's not the mother's tissue, it is the child's tissue, okay? So the child must bind to the mother's body and is how much dependent from mother's body? 100%, yes? Now the question is, does the mother also need something for her body? Is the mother also dependent for her body needs? On whom is mother dependent for her body needs? No, that's never possible. The umbilical cord is one, one direction the child takes. So the mother needs from nature. She has an umbilical cord bound to nature. Do you have an umbilical cord bound to nature? Yes. Yes, your nose is bound to your nature. The mouth is bound to nature. Your lungs is bound to nature. So, mother needs to eat from nature, and what she eats goes how much into the child's blood system? As much that can go through the placenta border. Now the question is, when the mother drinks alcohol, the child is drunk. Who makes the child drunk? I just put this question in order that we think to understand the process, because it's most important to understand the process. So the child is drunken because the mother has consumed alcohol. Who makes the child drunk? Now the alcohol, that's a good idea, but but how does the alcohol get into the child? It is the child's action that makes him drunk. No. He has no choice. He must take it because he's bound to his mother. Everything that mother goes through the blood there in that place, he must, because he needs it. He needs it. And if something is there that is poisoned, he will take that in as well. And it will go to his brain and he will be drunk. So the mother doesn't make the child drunk. It's the child who makes himself drunk. But who's responsible that the child is drunk? It's because mother is a source. It's a source for the need, the physical need of the mother. Now, is there also a spiritual cord between the mother or between the child and the mother? It's either even before the child binds himself physically to mother, immediately before, when they two come together, the spirit of the child binds itself to mother's spirit. He does that through trust, because taking is trust. And he builds in those first 3 months and then in the next 6 months, he builds together the body. So, in order that his body should be developed correctly or built together perfectly, the Spirit must give the right impulses that should happen. That's why when children are born with malformations, who made it? The spirit of the baby put things not correctly together in the body because he governs everything. We saw that yesterday. He makes that. That's why we have one ear is not there and the other ear is perfectly. So one side is perfectly developed and the other is not. It must start from either one or both sides of the cortexes. We are not aware of this. That's why we don't know when children are born, why they are born like they are born. So how much choice does the child has to not bind to mother's spirit? No choice. And how much choice can the child have not to take the bad thing from mother? No choice. If the mother goes during pregnancy or even before through a mourning situation, her mother dies or her spouse betrays her, whatever happens, then the poor child must take all that and puts it into his body. Because he has no choice. What he takes in, he puts into the body. That's why in the body we can always see where a spirit is dependent on. So is the mother also dependent on someone for her spirit? Does she also have a spiritual umbilical cord? Yes or no? Yes, she must have one. To whom is the mother bound? Through trust. To whom? Well, unfortunately, she binds herself also to the baby, but through whom is she bound first? Well, that would be nice if it would be God. Then the child would have never any malformations. Yeah? So to whom is the mother bound? Husband, mother, father, and then comes children. So that's why if you have an issue in the bodies of the child, this is my experience and it's very, very clear. By the law you can explain it. The child's disease comes because mother has an issue with the father of the child. If mother would have never any expectations from the father for herself, the child would develop perfectly. Now mothers don't like that, but I haven't made the law that in the mother should come out the baby, not in the man. Yes? So the spirit of the child does not bind to the spirit of the father, just to the spirit of the mother. That's why mothers are so important. So you could see the difficulties. And I explain you a case that I just recently have. The mother is still in my counseling. Now, maybe I say it a little bit later. However, I say it now and then we can. This child, she has a daughter, and the daughter has 12 years old now. She's 12 years old. And the daughter came and said to her at the age of 9 years that she is in the wrong body. She says she's a boy, not a girl. Now, why would that idea come up in a child's spirit? And you will see what happened when the child was 2 years old. The mother separated herself from the father of the child. She said, he's a very nice guy, but I didn't like him anymore. It was just gone. I have nothing for him anymore, so they still lived together. They separated each one in his bedroom. At the age of 2, in the moment the mother separated from father, what happened to the child? Did it show? It changed immediately. The child became very, in his behavior, very strange. When she was in kindergarten, they said, this child is, yes? And since then, the behavior of the child was always changing to the worse. Why? Because mother separated from father. And the child knows what happens in the mother's innerst heart, because it's connected there. And you can never hide anything from your child. So the child saw, or being connected to mother, when mother stopped loving father, and the child has a need, and the needs of the greatest need of the child is that mother should love father. You know that? It wants harmony in the relationship. And the disease of the child is there because she wants to satisfy mother first, and then of course father. But it does it because it is dependent on them, because it needs mother's pleasantness in her mind. So I could observe that the issues in the child's life come because mother and father do not get along well, or mother has an issue with the father. That's why if a mother wants that her children should be healthy, she must be how to her husband? Dependent or independent spiritually? Independent. Because it's the dependency of her that she trusts her husband that makes the child sick when the husband doesn't do what he wants. And how many perfect husbands have you seen around? One. So, if the mother would be connected, and this is the other main idea that we need to understand, the source where you connect must be always bigger than you. Yes? How big is nature towards you? Much bigger? How big is God towards you? Yeah, so we can never connect to a source that is equal or lower than us. It's impossible. So that's also general rule of all rules. So you can only be dependent on someone or something that is higher than you are, bigger than you are. So that's why to be dependent from a human, if not a baby or a child, is not according to the law. It's not natural. You must be dependent. If you are an adult, you must be dependent on a higher being than just one that is equal with you. So now we take out the child from the mother's womb and we cut down the umbilical cord, and the child now binds itself to nature. Yes, it takes from there. But what happens with the spiritual umbilical cord? How long does that stay? It stays as long as the child keeps it there. Because it's the child's action to be bound to mother, not the mother's action to be bound to the child. And you see, I observed this in my practice, and I could find the diseases of the children that came into my practice according to this pattern because I knew the law and I knew that the child must be spiritually dependent on her mother. But today we have even experiments that prove that. And these neurological experiments measure the brain activity. I have 1.5 hours and 2 times 1.5. Okay, I have to finish. I know. I'm almost done. So, is the first. You can measure the electrical current in the child and in the mother, and when you put those measurements on, you will see whenever mother changes electricity, the child immediately changes in mother's way. It's an immediately change. It doesn't go from child to mother. And it goes until a certain distance. They don't see each other. And still, whenever the mother changes the way of thinking and her electricity, the child immediately does it. Now, our scientists, they don't know why, but they have funny ideas. And so they came up with a funny idea. They call that, you might have heard it, mirror neurons. Yes, they call that mirror neurons. It's a stupid thing because there are no mirrors in our head, because all is darkness up there. You know, the brain is in total darkness. It's in a liquid, yeah? There's nothing that can be mirrored there. But they don't know that the child has a spirit that is connected to the mother's spirit. And since the child and the spirit makes the electricity, he governs the whole impulses. That's why when the mother changes, the child changes immediately. So that's another proof that the child's spirit is dependent on the mother's spirit. But it goes only to a certain distance. You know why children get sick when you put them in the daycare? Or you put them in the kindergarten? It is the umbilical cord is cut away. Because how often does the child in its umbilical cord take from mom? It's all the time. You see, if you observe a child, and we didn't have the grace to have children, to raise children from the bottom on. We just got them already ready. The youngest was 7, the oldest was 17. But God was merciful with me because He knows that I like to study. And my employees, my helper in my practice, she was a young girl when I employed her, and she got a boyfriend, she got married, and she got a child. And she stood home. In Germany, you can stay home 3 years. But she stood home 1 year, and then she wanted to come back to work. And I said to her, you must stay home, your child needs you. But no, so we bought a house, and we need to pay the mortgage, whatever. And I had to take her back because the law does not permit you to not take her back. Yeah? So I said, okay, I take you back with a condition. You bring the child with you, and we raise him here together. And I didn't do it without an interest. It was for me a great interest because I wanted to see how a child develops firsthand. And I had it for 2.5 years. I raised a child in my practice. I made him the room beside my room so that I was close. And I tell you, this child learned to walk in my practice. Everything he learned in the practice. To jump down from windows, to come out of his bed, you know. It was nice when he was little. You put him in that cage and nothing could happen. He could just, but he couldn't do anything else. But the first day he jumped out of that, I still remember that. I said, now we lost it. And then the first day when he could come and open the doors, you lose it. Yeah? And so children are fantastic. And I could see on this child, on his reaction, always when his nose was running or something wouldn't go well with his ears, then I asked the mother, what happened? Because something needed to happen. Yeah? And says, oh, stress here, stress there. So on the child's body, you can exactly see what the mother has for a problem. That doesn't like mothers, yes? But it's a great help. Because mothers don't know that they are sources. One mother once said to me, I don't believe you. I have a very good relationship with my husband. But her second child got recurrent right-sided ear infections. That's the father's side. And I mean, it was just because the child is right-handed. If it's left-handed, it's opposite. So it's the dominant side always. And the mother was so sure that there is nothing that is in her that could make the child sick. And I said, look, I understand it's a subconscious process, but I put her a few questions. And in those questions, she just confirmed everything that I know. She said, I'm having a good relationship with your husband. I said, okay, you have a good relationship with your husband. And I said, is your husband working? And he says, yes, he's working. Does he work much or does he work less? Now, how much does the husband work normally? Much or less? Too much, yeah. The husbands work much, yes? And so I say, do you miss your husband when he's not home? And then she said, yes. So I said, well, then the child's ear infection is exactly that. Very perfect. Because mother is on whom dependent spiritually? The husband. You see, there's almost no woman that I met in my practice that says my husband gives me enough time. They all lack of time. Yeah, they say, my husband doesn't, and then also they lack because they don't communicate. You see, husbands don't communicate. You know that? They just communicate before they get married. After that, it's over. And because they know everything now is fine. Now, it has to work. Yes. So then I asked the ladies, I said, why do you want to communicate with them? Leave them alone, I mean. Why would you like to communicate? What's the purpose? For you or not for you? Why would you like communication? It's for you because you are dependent on that man. So how long should the umbilical cord with the child last? The first 7 years, mother and child should not be separated longer than a few distance. So that the umbilical cord is not interrupted. That's one cause, and the other cause is when mother has issues. And the more issues mother has, the more we will see it in the child's life. And since no one taught mothers how to solve their issues, are mothers guilty? I hope not, because when I speak about this subject, many mothers feel guilty. But they're not, because no one taught them how things work. And if you don't know, can you do something about it? Now you see, my mother had no idea how we work. I am the second born child. But I was the most sick child from 4 children. Because I have in my first need harmony. Yes? And my father and my mother didn't get along well. And so I had a stressed mother. At the age of 2 months, I almost died on a pneumonia. At the age of 1 year, I started with a nervous tic. So I moved my body in order to fall asleep. This nervous tic was with me until I was 14 or 15 years old. Now with the time I got more technique, and so I had to, before I fall asleep, I put my left hand in the bag, and so I had to move around until I passed away. I mean, I fell asleep. And then I stopped. Imagine how weird that was. I never stopped peeing in bed. I had to until I was 8 years old. At the age of 5, I got a inguinal hernia. I could not speak correctly. I need a logopedic therapy. That was my grandmother who knew how to do it. She taught me to say the same words so often, so the r came out. I couldn't say the r. Yeah? I got my first surgery at the age of 6 when my inguinal hernia was. I still remember that. In Romania, they do it in local anesthesia. And I know how they put my epidural, the anesthesia in the bag, and they lay you down. And they made the cut before they put the thing on it. So I saw how they cut it. And I still remember that scene from my early childhood. At the age of 8 years, my mother and my father separated. A week later, I got hepatitis B. And I was put into the hospital in quarantine for 3 weeks. There I lost my enuresis into the night. I didn't pee in the bed anymore because somehow I got scared, I don't know, because we were 6 people in the room and my urine goes through the mattress on the bottom, so that doesn't look good. So you're full of shame. However, I came home. I didn't do that anymore since then. But as I came home, I became hyperactive. And from the age of 8 to 14, my mother could do nothing with me. I went to school. I didn't come home. I was just wild. I found another boyfriend who his mother was also not happy. I mean, she was gone to Germany, and we were living in Romania. And my mother was working in 3 shifts. We had only grandmother at home. So we had to somehow, have all the things. And so did I know what happened with me? My poor mother, she almost every night I got my beating. I was used to it. Right? But it never helped because the next day I did exactly the same. I was the worst from my siblings. At the age of 14, when my friend left for Germany, I got from one day to another quiet. My hyperactivity passed away, but all my teeth started to get caries. Probably I ate too much sweets. Was not really. So I had to go to repair my tooth. And back then they had this good amalgam fillings. They are very healthy. So I got those fillings. At the age of 15, a year later, when I got the fillings, I got migraine. And since then I had migraine since I was 39. All the time I had recurrent infections of my tonsils until the age of 28 when I took them out. Did I solve the problem? No. I got the tiredness. I couldn't recover after that surgery. I could not recover. And a few weeks later, I got panic attacks, fear. No one taught me what happens with me. At the age of 28, I wanted to bring mother and father together again. Both of them were not yet remarried, and I started a a reunion process. Was I aware what I did? I was 28 years old. For whom did I do it? Yes, because I wanted that harmony. I even made an experiment a few years ago. I brought my mother to visit my father. And I wanted to see how they react together after so many years of separation. And it was that only in a few minutes I had the same perception like in childhood. They were immediately fighting each other. Immediately. And they're both Christians. And I said, Mother, you must pray to God as much as you can to love Father. And I said to my father the same thing. You must pray as much as you can to love Mother, because you call yourself Christians, but you don't love each other. If you don't love each other, a problem is there. So a child is dependent on their parent. He does not know. And now in this last year and something, God brought my mother into my house. Guess what? Why? That I should see that my umbilical cord is still attached to Mother. And I thank God that He brought it there, and I thank God that Mother and my wife are not very happy with each other. So that really stresses my umbilical cord on both of them. So that I can cut it away. I see it. And I become a free person. So we must know, in the Bible's time, and it's still the same thing, at the age of 12, a child should be unweaned spiritually from mother. And it should be only dependent on God. But how many mothers train their children to not be dependent on her? Yeah? Most mothers want to keep their children with them for how long? Forever. Yes? If they could, when they get married, to have a separate room, yeah, just beside the marriage, their bedroom, so that mother can be as close as possible. You might not have it in that way, but everyone will see his attachment to something that it should not be attached. So this is the right way. The education, there is one purpose for education, which is basic. A mother and a father need to educate the child to unwean from them and become spiritually purely dependent on God. That's why Moses was taken at the age of 12 from his mother, and his mother did a good job, and Moses knew on whom he was dependent. So looking to it, so the child first dependency is his mother, but then he binds itself also on father. For what purpose? To take. Then the spirit of the child binds to the spirit of the grandmother. Yes, for what? Why do children love their grandparents? To give them something or to take something? To take something. Then they bind to the spirit of the brother. Then they bind to the spirit of the friends. Then they bind to the spirit of the neighbor. Every single relationship that a child or a person has in the error, he just binds for the purpose to take. Never there is a relationship for the purpose to give. So at the same time, in the error, he claims the love from his mother, he claims love from father, from grandparents, from friends, from neighbors, and if they are Christians, they claim the love from God. So who is on the throne? No. Who's on the throne? The child is on the throne. See, every expectation that the child has from the parents is not right. See, some people come and say, I forgave my parents. And I said, who are you to forgive your parents? Who must you be in order to forgive? You must be God. There's no such thing. That's a pity that we believe we must forgive someone. We'll speak maybe of forgiveness as well, because we need to give a definition of forgiveness, because some people are saying, yeah, but didn't Jesus say that we should forgive our neighbors? Yes, but what is forgiveness? If you don't understand what forgiveness is, we might be very confused of that. But I think we have there a clear understanding what forgiveness is, if we understand the law, if you understand what's the issue. So that was my first lecture.